Good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shea. Time for an update on what's happening in the tropics. We are sailing on through this hurricane season for the Atlantic Basin. We only have 2 more months to go, and we've been very fortunate for Houston and for the Texas Gulf Coast. We have not been hit by a tropical storm, a hurricane, or even a tropical depression, and hopefully that streak will continue for just 2 more months, and then we will call it a wrap for this hurricane season. Really, if we don't get anything by the middle of October, I think that is probably going to be it for us, but there's always a very low chance something can happen. But no hurricanes have hit the U.S. so far this season. So we had, of course, Aaron, which at one point was a Category 5 hurricane, kind of brushed just to the east of the east coast of the U.S., brought some really big wave action out there, but never actually made landfall. So we haven't had any landfalls this season. That is great news, because typically that is not the case. In fact, for the state of Texas, as we check out all of the U.S., we're talking about billion-dollar disasters, weather and climate events, and you can see Texas, one of the hardest hit areas when it comes to those weather and climate disasters that end up costing in the millions and billions. In fact, this map estimating our disasters from 1980 to 2024, over $150 billion. Of course, Harvey, that dumped close to 50 inches of rain for parts of the area, contributed big time to that, plus some other major tropical systems. So good news, nothing like that has happened this season, but we have had 9 named storms in the Atlantic Basin, 4 of those becoming hurricanes and 3 becoming major hurricanes. That's Category 3 or larger. CSU, Colorado State University meteorologist, did predict for this season, as of July, 16 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So we've made it to that major hurricane prediction, but still a ways to go for the named storms and hurricanes. We're halfway there for the hurricanes that the CSU forecasters did predict for the season. So here are the 9 names that we've been through, Andrea all the way to Humberto and Imelda. Earlier today, we got rid of Humberto. It became the remnants of Humberto, no longer a tropical system. We now have Imelda, which has grown to a Category 2 hurricane, and the next name on the list would be Jerry. Then we'd have Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, and Nestor. After that, if we need it, we have a whole extra column of names that takes us all the way through the rest of the season if we need those. But don't think we'll get through the entire list, but it is there just in case. All right, so at this point, we still just have 1 hurricane out there. That would be Hurricane Imelda in the Atlantic. Category 2 at this point. That means it has winds around 96 to 110 miles per hour. Gusts could be even stronger, so that can do a lot of damage. So here is a look at Hurricane Imelda tracking towards Bermuda for tonight and tomorrow. It is going to come very close to making landfall in Bermuda. You can see the remnants of Humberto looking pretty ragged and disorganized. That kind of got picked up by a trough that kind of ripped it apart, but Imelda looking more well put together and certainly more impressive on this satellite loop. So we certainly have to watch Imelda. Bermuda directly in its path, a lot of tropical moisture heading this way, and of course those really big waves, the threat for flooding, and the potential for a lot of wind. So hurricane force winds going to be a likelihood here. So we do have hurricane warnings in place for Bermuda. You can see that we do have a Category 2 hurricane spinning here. Like I said, the satellite imagery looking a lot more impressive. 70-mile-per-hour winds for Humberto at this point. This is the one that we've gotten rid of, and this was the last advisory as of 10 a.m. this morning. So it will continue to weaken as it moves into cooler waters, but of course we are still keeping a close eye on Imelda. Imelda is still bringing really big waves from Florida to the Carolinas. We've got several homes along the Carolina coast that have collapsed over the last 24 hours, and this is with a hurricane that's been hundreds of miles away. Bermuda in the direct path of Imelda with hurricane warning still in place, so we're going to have to watch this closely. So you can see some of the impacts from Imelda for the southeastern U.S. from the Carolina coast all the way down to the Florida coast. Big waves really impacting some of those houses right along the beach. So we've got that to worry about. We've got a coastal flood advisory still going on for parts of northeast Florida. Some of those parking lots, roads could definitely flood with that water coming on shore. All right, here is Imelda, now a Category 2 hurricane, 100-mile-per-hour winds. It's actually forecast to strengthen a little bit as it rolls over Bermuda tonight and tomorrow, and then it is going to take a turn to the north, move into that cooler water in the North Atlantic, and then it will gradually weaken and lose its tropical characteristics as we get into the weekend. All right, I want to give you a brief look at the Gulf, and you can see the warm water temps out there. So we've got water warm enough to fuel tropical systems, and we actually have a weak low in the southern Gulf. So we've been monitoring this all week thinking, hey, could this possibly develop into a tropical depression? Well, there's always a chance, but the models really aren't too impressed by it. It is not really in an environment that would help it to grow rapidly, and on top of that, it is moving south, and it would likely push into parts of Mexico as we go towards the end of the week. So even if it were to briefly develop, it is not heading towards the Texas Gulf Coast. However, as we've come to an end as far as the month of September, we've now rolled into October, and there is still an above average chance for some of these tropical systems to develop for parts of the Gulf, the eastern Gulf especially, western, northwestern Caribbean, a likely chance, and the western and central Atlantic, still a fairly high chance as we go through October. Even in November, chance is not zero. It's much lower, but there is always that possibility. So remember to always keep in mind that when things are quiet, you never want to let your guard down. We've been very fortunate here across the Texas Gulf Coast this season. No major hits, no minor hits. Let's try to keep it that way, but always be prepared, because hurricane season does not officially end until November 30th. So we got 2 more months to get through. Notice for November that chance for tropical cyclones really starting to decrease for the Gulf. So fingers crossed we can keep this stretch of quietness for the tropics going for us. But of course, if things change, we'll be here every day to keep you up to date.